the winning frequency of the 1%. Unfortunately, it seems as though in life there are few winners and a lot of losers. And this all comes down to a misunderstanding and an ignorance to how winning and losing are actually nothing more than energetic polarities of each other that people have the capability of harnessing into their base frequency, leading them to be either a loser or a winner. And the truth of the matter is losing and winning are both frequencies. How do I know? Simply because before anything can exist physically, it first must exist vibrationally. And until you understand why losing is a frequency and how sometimes we get caught up in it as human beings trapped within this third dimensional realm, we will continue to fail to achieve what we want. Because on a base level, simplistically, and simplicity is the ultimate form of sophistication, winning is nothing more than an achievement. And this can be extrapolated to the entirety of a multitude of desires. This comes down to relationships, the potentiality for the achievement of a healthy relationships, a particular job, a career promotion, or a certain level in your business. Or if you like some of my clients that are professional athletes, then that comes down to performance. So until we can reverse engineer the frequency of winning, we will continue to be losers by default. And that's a bar, write that down. So let's get into it.
My gosh, I was holding that in for the whole intro.
Sorry, bro.
Thought I was gonna die.
You see, searching for somebody that'll take you. So let me start off by saying this. When we talk about winning and losing, bear in mind, whenever I say winning, just think about it as achievement. People think about winning in the context solely of competition, but the attainment of your desired reality in of itself is winning. It's an achievement. Extrapolate this to career, promotions, business, income levels, certain performance, whether you're an actor, an athlete, or whatever. Winning and losing are nothing more than energetic polarities of the same energy, no different from light and dark, no different from steam and ice. You cannot clap with one hand. They're the same energy. Their only difference is their rate of vibration. They're quite literally the same thing. And it is your vibration that when it gains momentum becomes a frequency. And frequency is nothing more than immaterialized reality. But until we can reverse engineer how frequency works, we will not have the capability of being able to shift maybe from one side to another. Now, chances are on the losing side, this is the failure to attain whatever it is that we want. So we may be on this side having and struggling to attain what it is that we want. We may apply for a job, but we may not get it. We may put ourselves for that promotion. We may not get it. You might chat to that girl and you get aired, or she just rejects you, and vice versa. You may try to close a certain client and it just doesn't work. You may be in an interview and it just doesn't go the way that you expected. And it all comes down to the unconscious association with the frequency of losing. And please make sure you take notes and leave them in the comments as usual. But there's always an energetic unconscious association with losing. And so long as your vibration is skewed towards losing, that means your frequency, because vibration is nothing more than the step before frequency. Frequency is vibration that has gained momentum. Frequency is immaterialized reality, and reality is materialized frequency. We need to understand that these two energies are the same thing. But even though they're the same thing, majority of us spend our time over here due to the unconscious association with losing. But it gets worse. If you just listen to what I just said, I said we spend most of our time there. And the reason why we spend most of our time there is because we're unaware of the base mechanics of the universe that are contributing to us staying there. And until you understand how the universe works, you won't understand how you work, because you are quite literally the universe. Hence why the ancient Greek proverb, know thyself and thou shalt know all. So long as you begin to reveal and analyze and begin to understand the inner mechanics of yourself, then the universe begins to make a lot more sense. If you're ever confused as to what's going on in life, it's because you're failing to connect the invisible string that connects your mind and your reality, your consciousness and your reality, because they're the same thing. Now, there is a feature of the universe that I call the universal compound effect. And this is actually a chapter in my Amazon best-selling book in all three categories in less than 24 hours, and most gifted in its category. Jokes aside, the universal compound effect. If you just think about what a compound effect is, typically it's more so associated in the financial terms of compound interest, which is nothing more than interest gaining interest. It is just nothing more than quite literally a snowball effect. And this happens with frequency. And we can look at this from a point of neuroplasticity even. The more that habits are based upon neural pathways, whenever you begin to form an action, whenever you begin to do an action, it forms a neural pathway. You do that again, it strengthens that neural pathway, and then that habit is nothing more than a pathway that's been formed in the brain. That's how it works from a point of neuroplasticity. Now, due to the fact that we have the hermetic law of correspondence, as above, so below, the universe has its own neuroplasticity, and that comes down to frequency. And repeated modes or repeated modes of thinking, being, quote unquote. In fact, yes, it's probably better if I say it like that. So we have neuroplasticity, and that's to do with doing. When we talk about your state of being, that's the universal compound effect. Now you're probably thinking, what does this have to do with winning and losing? I don't want to stop losing. Relax. Zip up your pants, wipe your mouth. You're going to get some relax. It all comes down to the fact that until you can understand that frequency is compounded, so the longer you spend in a frequency, the more it is compounded. And that's due to the fact that consistency is alchemy. And that's a bar, write that down. Consistency is alchemy because it allows for momentum to be built. And that momentum stacks and stacks and stacks. Now you might think to yourself, okay, but if you look at the world around you, why do the rich get richer? Now, there's a multitude of explanations on this physically. We can talk about circular monopolizations of assets. We can talk about the controls of infrastructure. We can talk about quite literal, The Economic Hitman, which is a book in which, it's actually interesting. People think that, they look at quote unquote third world countries, and they look at those countries and they think to themselves, why are the leaders so stupid? Like, why are they taking laws they can't afford? There was a man named John Perkins who literally wrote a book called The Economic Hitman. I recommend that you read it. And it's literally the man that used to go into countries and force presidents to take on these ridiculous loans or execute them, and then they'll just be replaced with somebody else. Why I got off that tangent, I have no idea. It just came to my mind. But nonetheless, when we're talking about frequency and in terms of winning and losing, it all comes down to the fact that frequency stacks and stacks and stacks and stacks. Think about a small wind can gain momentum and become a tornado. You can think about a snowball that rolls down a hill, becomes an avalanche, has the capability of becoming an avalanche. This happens again and again and again. And oh yes, I was giving a physical plane explanation to why certain people get rich. But if we look at it from a point of metaphysics, why the rich get richer and the poor get poorer, or why do the winners keep winning, and when you're losing, it's like you're in this cycle of losing. It's due to the fact of the universal compound effect. When we're in a certain frequency, it stacks and stacks and stacks and stacks and stacks and stacks and stacks. And because it stacks and stacks, we then generate this large degree of volume of energy. And that energy then quite literally almost becomes this wall that we have to feel like we're pushing against. Now, it's important that you understand that, because until you can understand the universal compound effect, you won't understand why sometimes you can feel like we're stuck in cycles. Cycles are nothing more than energy in a consistent secular motion again and again and again and again. And that arises from the universal compound effect. Now, there's something else about frequency that I need you to understand before we can get into winning and losing. And when we go through winning and losing, we're going to be going through the energetic characteristics of winners and losers. That's real.
Ben G talks. Can't click on this channel, but
that's real.
Code.
That's real. Wow. That's lovely.
Bro does not sound excited for them at all.
Who, me?
Yeah. Bro was like, yeah, that's nice.
No, honestly,
nice.
It's genuinely, it's startling. Like, it's startling, but it's weird. It's crazy. That's amazing. You don't have frequency, frequency has you. That's something else that I'm going to have to get you to understand before we can go into the energetic characteristics of winning and losing. Because what you have to understand about frequency is that frequency wants to stay. If you begin to view each frequency as a living entity, an entity that quite literally, if you think about it like almost in a parasitic way, it likes to exist. It wants to continue existing within your mind and taking up mental real estate, because you give it energy, then it has the capability of materializing as it wants to alter its state of existence. And this comes down to winning and losing too. So even when I go through each of these characteristics, even though you're going to think these are things that you've thought and these are things that you think, more so this is not something you have, but something that has you. And this can be extrapolated to a realm of different states of consciousness. When we're talking about, for example, somebody who's in a continuous degree of toxic relationships, they may think to themselves, damn, why do I keep having these toxic relationships? Because the entity of toxic relationships has you. Why am I broke? You're not broke. Being broke has you. You see the difference? Because these are literal entities that have you, because they have entire psychologies and psyches that they begin to deploy into your consciousness. So you begin to think within its paradigm, because once you think within its paradigm, it then has the capability of materializing that particular paradigm into reality. This is just a little preface before I go through what I'm going to go through so you can understand. Winning is just a frequency.
Fell asleep watching a Nero playlist, woke up in my desired reality.
That was actually funny.
Someone said, rid your ears of Kendrick with some fake milk.
With some fake what?
What's fake milk? I don't know, but I just heard rid your ears of Kendrick.
First of all, no. Fake mink's probably an artist, maybe.
Please don't let me Google this. It's crazy.
Already.
It's a rap.
Yeah, I thought so. We'll check them out.
Oh no.
Cool. So, these are the energetic. I don't think I like orange. You guys let me know if you like orange.
I like orange.
Well, I have to finish it now. All these, this again. So, these are the energetic characteristics that lead to the output of the frequency of losing. Okay. Bear in mind, when I say losing, it's a harsh term, but just think about it as a failure to achieve. Failure to attain achievement for a desired reality. So, first things first, which one should I start with? I'll start with one in the middle. Throw everybody off, because normally you start from the top, you know. Bear in mind, when I say losers, I don't mean this in a harsh way, because technically a loser makes it sound as if it's merged with your identity, but frequencies and states of consciousness are almost like jackets. You put them on, but you're not your jacket. I'm wearing this vest right now, or this tank top right now, or wife beater, but this isn't me, right? I can take this off. It's the same thing. Extrapolate this with states of consciousness and frequencies. So when I say loser, don't think I'm referring to you as a loser, nigga. I'm just trying to convey a point for the ease of explaining what I'm trying to say here. So when we're talking about losers or individuals that are occupied with the frequency of losing, they have already lost before the races even began. Extrapolate this to your desired reality. Let's say that there's a job that you want to apply for. Due to the fact that maybe you've continuously experienced a consistent degree of failure and rejection when it comes to getting a job, you may just be filling out the application like, I'm not even going to get it. You may DM that girl and you're like, I know she ain't even going to reply. You may try to give that guy a signal, but you've already lost internally. Already. And the unfortunate part about that is, never forget, within leads to without. As within, as without, on earth as it is in heaven. As within, as without. When internally, you've already decided, because bear in mind, Everything that takes place within your mind is a decision that you are just unconscious of. It feels out of control, but everything is quite literally a decision. People say, how do I alter my beliefs, decide to believe something different? Oh no, it doesn't feel that simple. Well, that's also a decision. In fact, that decision is projected by the old frequency, which wants to make it seem as if change is difficult. So you then think change is too difficult. So then you don't have the capability of actually changing. But it's all a decision. And more often than not, losers, or people that are occupied by the frequency of losing, I should say, have already lost internally, so how could they win externally? And that's a bar, write that down. If you've already lost internally, how could you ever expect to win externally? Before anything can exist physically, first has to exist vibrationally. Vibrationally is a combination of mentally and emotionally. If mentally, you're already like, I ain't getting this ain't gonna happen. And emotionally, you're already in a state of apathy. You're like, I don't even give a fuck. And you're feeling the despair of past losses. You've already lost internally. And when you've already lost internally, it can only lead to the outcome of losing without. And this is something that we all do in different aspects of our lives. People might, I had a client once back before I used to work with entrepreneurs. Even though she was an entrepreneur, she didn't hire me for that. She wanted to get into a healthy relationship. So then, of course, we're doing the work. She's going on dates. I'm like, oh, you about to go on your date? She's like, yeah, but I just know it's just not gonna work.
Eesh.
How often do we do that unconsciously? How often have we predetermined the outcome of reality without realizing that our predetermination of our reality is a creation of that reality? And that's a bar, write that down. And this comes down to the second point, which is we expected it. We expect to lose. We're just doing it for the sake of doing it, so we feel like we have this illusion of progress, but it's like we don't believe it's gonna. You don't believe it's gonna. You don't believe you're gonna close that client. You don't believe you're gonna get that job. You don't believe you're gonna get that promotion. You don't believe you're gonna date that person. You don't believe that person's gonna notice you. And expectation is creation.
What about the people that lower their expectations so they're not disappointed?
Even worse. To lower your expectation is to lower the standards of something that you believe you can attain. By lowering your expectations, you then set yourself to create nothing more than something reflective of a lower reality. And that's a defense mechanism of the old frequency. People will say, I don't know if you watched the Spider-Man film with Tom Holland, where like everyone was there, like Killer Croc. Did you? Yeah. Mary Jane says, it's easier to just expect being disappointed. It's just easy to expect that it's not gonna, to avoid disappointment, essentially. And that quite literally, expectation is creation. And more often than not, we expect situations and conditions and circumstances and realities that reflect the opposite of what it is that we want. And it all comes down to a mistake that people make. You don't take your mind serious. How could you take your mind serious? You've been told your whole life, hey, it's just imagination. And due to the fact that there are no truths in reality other than what the subconscious mind can accept as true, when you water down the perception towards your imagination, you actually end up watering down the capability of your imagination. Not because your imagination is just imagination and it's just make-believe, but belief makes. And that was also a bar. Write that down. If you used to take your mind as serious, when you're having those arguments with people in your head or whatever it is, and we're just letting our minds run free, we wouldn't let our minds run free if we actually saw the mental activity that takes place in our mind the same way that we see physical activity. But for example, I wouldn't punch AJ in real life, so why am I going to punch him in my head? If I wouldn't want to lose in real life, why would I lose in my head? How the hell does that make sense? Why can't the only place that you actually own, your own state of consciousness, your own mind, you win? Why do we expect to lose? We normalize losing. I don't normalize losing, Nero. Yes, you do. When you lose, is it normal? When it doesn't go right for you, is it normal? Of course it is. That means you've normalized it. And whatever you find normal finds you. if you find it normal that things don't go your way, if you find it normal that you're not able to attain what it is that you want, if you find it normal that you attract toxic people, if you find it normal that you get rejected for promotions, if you find it normal that nobody gets back to you for that career promotion, if you find it normal that when you get on calls or you go to meetings and you try to close deals, it doesn't go your way, then that's going to find you.
I don't like the Tyler Perry movie. You watched it, Straws, on Netflix.
Bro, I've seen too many Tyler Perry films.
Yeah, they're just all negative, innit?
All negative.
Bro, this black woman just goes through the worst day of her life.
Always.
She does this, her boss is like, no, you can't do this.
Always.
She comes back, she's fired.
Always.
Have
you seen Why Did I Get Married?
Why Did I Get Married? By Tyler Perry?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Search it and see if you've seen it. Why Did I Get Married? It's hilarious. But the other thing about losing is that losing affects your internal state. Bear in mind, once again, just to reiterate, the way that I'm defining losing is a failure to attain a desired reality. Extrapolate that to whatever it is that you want. Losing affects your internal state. Now, here's the thing. Until you're internally independent of the external, you will be a slave to reality. And that's a borrow that down. Hence why my definition of manifestation is internally shifting to a degree to which you're no longer emotionally dependent upon seeing reality change. No longer emotionally dependent upon seeing reality change. Losers have their internals affected by the failure to attain what it is that they want. Because when you are dependent upon an outcome in reality, when you get that outcome, you feel great. And when you don't, you feel terrible, without realizing that your internal state of feeling terrible has to lead to an external state reflective of conditions, circumstances, events, and people that are only going to make you feel more terrible. Why? Because the base mechanic of the universe is magnification. So losers allowing the external to affect their internal sets them on a pathway to do nothing more than lose and then perpetuate that cycle. The other thing about losers is that they lack conviction. They lack conviction in their ability to attain an outcome. They lack conviction in their ability to win. Why? Because conviction is based upon confidence, and your confidence is nothing more than the result of your self-trust. And if you don't trust yourself, how the fuck could the universe trust you to rearrange it? Quite literally. And if the universe doesn't trust you to rearrange it, then that means you lack confidence. If you lack confidence, you lack conviction. If you lack conviction, then you lack what is esoterically known as faith, that has the capability of moving mountains and creating reality. Losers lack conviction in their ability to win. The other thing, and the final thing, is that, and this is when it's bad. This is when it's bad. I've met some niggas like this that are self-identified quite literally as losers. And when you begin to self-identify with losers, then you make that example earlier that I was giving about frequencies and state of consciousness being like jackets. You put on that jacket and it sticks to your skin to a point that when you try to take it off, it hurts. And now you're having cognitive dissonance about your ability to attain something because you see yourself as nothing more than a loser. And unfortunately, due to the fact that there are no truths in reality other than the one that subconscious mind accepts as true, now you've made yourself a loser internally, so now you've made yourself a loser externally. And if we look at it on a deeper point from the esoteric, you've now aligned yourself with the egregor or a thought form or a living entity that exists on the spiritual plane known as loser. So wherever you go, like a Shinigami in Death Note, it follows you around, doing nothing more than having this ripple effect of you continuously failing to attain what it is that you want. And then it feeds off your failure, because when you fail, you're then disappointed, you're then apathetic, you're then frustrated, which is the very emotion, the very energy emotion that it feeds off to perpetuate it and maintain its cycle above you. And now that you're seeing this, you should be identifying with one of these. We all are. We all have. All of us. And don't think just because I know this shit and I've read hundreds of books and I work with these people that I'm any different from you. I'm literally the same. I go through these myself. And it's important that we have the capability of recognizing it, because awareness is the first step to transformation. And so long as you're unaware of which one of these I should say that you're experiencing, you're going to be unaware of how the frequency of losing is having a ripple effect in your failure to attain what it is that you want in reality. So find yourself there and tell me, which one are you? Maybe even put it in the comments. Which one are you? Because when you do that, then you're actually putting it in front of you as opposed to it being hidden within you. And now we can get onto the frequency. which I want to say. Once you begin to identify with self-doubt, you set yourself on the pathway to experience self-defeat. Now, we all experience self-doubt internally, but the difference is you're not supposed to identify with the self-doubt and think that is you, because no thought is real except the one that you choose. And once you choose that thought and you identify with that thought and you give energy to that thought and you align with it, as opposed to just saying, that's the frequency of losing, which is something that I want you to do now. All of the beliefs that I just listed before and all the modes of perceptions and thinking of the loser frequency, once you experience them now, once you say, that's the loser frequency internally trying to merge with me and try to convince me that this is me. Because if it has the capability of convincing you that this is you, how will you have the capability of convincing you that you are who you want to be when you're already convinced? Sorry again, AJ.
Did I let this deter me or change my conviction? Of course not. If anything, this was a sign that the frequency was calibrated right. So I persisted with my thoughts, and 10 minutes spare of my shift, I made a sale of $1,222.
100% fuck that girl as well.
Yeah, real.
That's fine. Let me use red. Right.
It's not even that hot today, but it's hot in this room, bro.
It's getting hot in here.
So hot.
So take off all your clothes.
I am
Getting so hot.
I wanna
clothes off. So earlier I was telling you guys about something that I told my clients in particular, and this is it. Transcend the concepts of winning and losing. Everything is a win. Now, on the pathway to attain whatever it is that you desire in your reality, you're going to experience naturally a degree of adversity, because as Sir Isaac Newton said, for every force there's an equal and opposite force. If we take that and extrapolate that to the spiritual and mental planes of existence, the more metaphysical planes of existence, when you generate motion to take a step forward, you've now set in motion the degree of what we call in our human expression as adversity into motion. And the thing is, you're going to have to transcend the concept of winning and losing. Well, you have to revert back to the initial statement that I made at the start. Losing and winning are polarities. And because they're polarities, polarity only exists within this third dimensional realm. And so long as polarities only exist in this third dimensional realm, everything within this third dimensional realm is in a degree of separation. And because everything in this reality is in a degree of separation, it's also in a degree of limitation. You see, polarity is an illusion. Beyond this third dimensional realm, this physical plane, this world that we call reality, everything is one. We're all one. AJ's one with me. We're all one.
I'm one with Shensia.
Okay.
Skilly Bang. Vibes Cartel.
Okay.
We're a boss.
Okay. Big up the world, boss. We're all one. And because we're all one, and bear in mind, when I say we, I'm not simply talking about human beings. I'm talking about the very substance of reality. Because reality is nothing more than matter. Matter is nothing more than the precipitate of consciousness. It's a droplet of consciousness. And because it's a droplet of consciousness, I'm one with this board, I'm one with this wall, this floor, this chair, the camera, my bookshelf over there, all of the books. We are one with everything in reality. However, when we don't have the capability of seeing our oneness with reality, we then descend into illusion. We then descend into polarity and the degree of separation without realizing that's a degree of limitation. And instead of coming to the truth that there's only one path, as it says in Romans 13, that God is the only authority in the universe, there's only one power in the universe, until we come to the understanding that we make the laws of our reality. And because we make the laws of our reality based upon the notion that there are no truths in the reality that you experience other than what the subconscious mind accepts as true, if you believe that you can't do it, you won't be able to do it. If you believe that you're gonna lose, you're gonna lose. If you believe that it's not gonna work for you, it's not gonna work for you. Is it because it wasn't gonna work for you and you was actually gonna lose? No, it's due to the fact that you have subconsciously accepted that notion, so you've created that into your reality. And because there's only one power in the universe, there is until we create two. And now you've created winning and losing. The only way to transcend losing is to just cut it off. Because once you cut it off, you then transcend polarity. You then transcend polarity and you enter oneness. And when you enter oneness, this is as close to what I call God's sight as we will ever be able to be in reality. When you come to the recognition that you should be one, as Jesus said, treat others how you want to be treated, that degree of unconditional love, that perception, it was due to the fact that he understood from a point of Christ consciousness that we are one. So how you treat somebody is also how they treat you. But let's take that across 3 planes of existence. Not just how you physically treat someone, how you think about somebody. Let's look at it spiritually, how you feel about somebody. And then let's also look at what Krishna said. Krishna said the wise are the same in pleasure and pain. This is once again the transcendence of the polarity. See, most people have this degree of polarity where they believe that I can either win or lose. And because you believe that you can either win or lose, you set yourself in motion to create 2 paths. And that path, which path you go on is going to be where your state of consciousness is skewed towards. And for most of us, just by the way that we were raised, just by our experiences, where we started off in the Lord, we're going to be skewed towards the losing side each and every time until you can get rid of that losing side. And that's when you transcend polarity by coming to the understanding that there is no losing. Everything is a win. Even when I lose, I win every single time. So even when you don't get that sale, you still won. Even when you don't get the outcome that you want, even when somebody mistreats you, you still won. And this is how you need to begin to re-alter your state of consciousness, because the moment that you begin to perceive everything as a win, you come to the truth of what I call the perception projection loop. How you perceive reality is how you project reality. Because the way that you look at life is the way life looks at you. Until you have the capability of changing the way you look at life, life won't look at you any other way. And this all comes down to the understanding that once you perceive everything as a win, you then, through your perception, open up avenues that you weren't even aware of on how to materialize that win every single time. And this is imperative. Absolutely imperative that you perceive everything you do as a win. So long as you're doing everything that you need to be doing from the right state of being, everything is a win. And that's a bar, write that down. Just to repeat, as long as you're doing everything that you're supposed to be doing from the right state of being, everything is a win. Every single thing is a win. And don't get it twisted. Maybe you may not win that match. Maybe you may not close that deal. Maybe that person may not respond to you. Maybe that company may not get back to you. Maybe you might get denied that promotion. But so long as you have the idea that this is a win, I can assure you, regardless of what may appear in front of you, so long as you move by mind sight instead of eyesight, it has no choice but to transmute itself, because what you're experiencing is nothing more than what you're vibrationally aligned to. And so long as you can maintain the vibrational alignment of a win, reality will be forced to align to you. You just can't let yourself descend into the frequency of a loser, which you're naturally going to do, right? Because we're all human beings, but it's our ability to catch ourselves out. Because the more we can catch ourselves out, the more we have the capability of stopping the very first thing that I spoke about at the start, which is the universal compound effect.
In this frequency, you have helped me get to. Oh, and by the way, I'm South African, and I have an interview with a company from the UK tomorrow after I convinced myself that it is normal to have a remote job. Thanks a million, Nero.
Nah, that's fine. Thank you, that's fine.
That's actually a really nice comment.
It is. Yeah, guys, I do not want you niggas to become dependent upon me. This is not a cult. Like, you're supposed to watch the videos, implement. You know what I'm saying? I don't want to be a crutch for you niggas. I could care less. I don't want that to be the case. Like, you're supposed to get to a point where maybe you're just here because, like that person said, you want to maintain frequency or this or that. But don't come to me. If you've been watching bare my videos, don't come again, pause, looking for bare information. Because as I said in a previous video, you know more than enough. It's never what you know that's the issue. It's the conviction in what you know that leads to an inability for you to exercise upon what you know.
Maintaining is
really
really
important. And AJ is going to shout at me after this and say, why are you telling them this? Why do you want them to go?
We've done this before. Then our next video was 10 out of 10. We're like, yo, what's going on? Where they gone? Eventually people came back to maintain. They even said it before. It's nice to be reminded.
Cool. So, first things first. This is the frequency of winning. Bear in mind, I define winning quite simply as the achievement of a desired reality. This could be closing a deal, getting that role, getting a promotion, getting a job, getting that particular person that you wanted to be with, making a certain amount of money, closing that sale, quote unquote. The first thing about winning from a point of frequency is that winning is normal. It's not rare. And that's the unfortunate thing. When you're accustomed to being in terms of the frequency of losing all the time, you then begin to see wins as this rare occurrence. But the thing about the win is that they've normalized winning. It's just part of who they are. So now I need you to normalize the idea that attaining what you want is just part of who you are, naturally. I mean, what else is the other option for you? You understand what I'm saying? And this is something that you need to normalize on a subconscious level due to the fact that there are no truths in reality other than what the subconscious mind accepts as true. And once you begin to perceive winning as normal, you then lead to the projection of a frequency that allows winning to be a normal experience as opposed to being a rare experience. And here's the thing, and it's beautiful because the more that you see winning as normal, the more you end up winning. And the more you end up winning, the more you're in the frequency of winning. The more you're in the frequency of winning, the more the universal compound effect can do what it does. And then you just build a fuck ton of momentum simply from an alteration in your perception towards winning. It can't be something that is rare, because when you perceive winning as rare or getting what you want or attaining what you want to be rare, you then by default mean that you are indirectly saying that losing is normal. And when you say that losing is normal, then to the same degree over here, you then enter the frequency of losing, which then leads to the universal compound effect, stacking all that loser energy against you. The other thing about win is that they've already won. I was talking to my client, Ethan, footballer for Arsenal. I said to him, like, yo, how many times before you step on the pitch do you decide that you've already scored? And he's like, I don't do that. I said, why the fuck not? I said, if you don't do that internally, how could you ever do that externally? How?
Ronaldo does that.
Naturally. You've already decided the outcome ahead of time. And I've been with Mandem. I'm not gonna say my niggas' names, but I've been with my guys and they want to go chat to a girl. I'm like, yo, go chat to her. They're like, nah, I'm not gonna get her. They've already decided to lose in their head. And because they've already made the mental decision in losing, which is backed with conviction, that enters the subconscious mind, and then even if they were to go try and chat to her, she's not gonna give them attention. But I've also been with my niggas when they're like, yo, I'm gonna go get that girl's number. They don't say I'm gonna go see, they say I'm gonna go get it. And that conviction leads to a particular type of frequency that leads to a completely different experience. Why? Because they've already won ahead of time. I was talking to another client of mine. He had a meeting yesterday. We had our meeting on Monday. I mean, you guys aren't gonna know what day it is. I had a meeting with my client on Monday, and he was telling me he's got a meeting with this company on Thursday. I said, oh, how did the meeting go? He said, I haven't done it yet. I said, why are you leaving up to chance? You need to come to a decision where you've already won your outcome ahead of time. Literally before you do it, because the mistake that a lot of people make is waiting for reality to prove to them that they're a winner. And reality will never prove anything to you other than what you are. And if you're not occupied the frequency of being a winner, it will never prove to you that you're a winner. So your outcome has to already be decided ahead of time. That deal's already been closed. You've already got that job. You've already been promoted. You're already with that person. There has to be nothing but sheer conviction, because conviction, especially on an emotional level, is what will ultimately enter the subconscious, and this is what taps into the esoteric meaning of faith. Faith comes from the Latin word fides. Fides is resonant with confidence and conviction, hence why faith can move mountains, quite literally. Expectation of winning. Remember, expectation is creation. You get what you expect. And that's a bar, write that down. And because you get what you expect, if you expect to win, if you expect to close that deal, if you expect to get that sale, if you expect to get that job, if you expect that person to reply, then chances are you will increase the likelihood of the materialization of that outcome, because expectation is remnants of conviction. We only expect the things that we have conviction in the outcome. The other thing is this. In the realm of reality creation, we make the mistake of focusing on what we reap as opposed to what we sow. Don't judge the day by what you reap, but judge the day by what you sow. And that's a bar, write that down. And what I mean by that is this. Winners aren't necessarily, even though they may express it physically, and I know this because I taught to these niggas. Not only do I talk to them, I work with them. They may express physically that, yeah, you know, it feels great to win this and da-da-da-da. It's all lip work. It's all lip service. They've already decided ahead of time. They're already won. They're already in that state. So when it happens, they're not gassed. There's nothing to be excited about. And the issue is, when we're occupying the frequency of being losers, the mistake that we make is being focused upon the outcome in reality. Because what we're doing unintentionally is becoming dependent on reality and making our internal state dependent upon what is shown externally. We are allowing the effect to affect the cause. The effect is reality, the cause is us. But when the effect can show you a sad face and mirror that into you, then your cause then becomes a sad face. And unfortunately, you then lead to the alteration of your reality to project some type of negativity. Hence why normally when you see these interviews of winners, they're like, oh, it's not even about the outcome. Why? Because they already fucking had the outcome. It's about the journey. Because while they're in the journey, they're already in that state. They're already immersing themselves and flooding themselves with the consciousness of what it is that they want to attain. So that is the most valuable time, because they're not judging the day by what they sow. They're judging the day by they're not judging the day by what they reap. They're not judging it by what they take out, but they're judging it by what they put in. They're judging it by what they sow. And that is where the main focus is. Preparation. They prepare to win. They're prepared to win. Naturally. Why? Because preparation is expectation. Think about it like a boxer. A boxer, when he's in a boxing match, there's this idea that he's going to get punched, right? So he has to prepare based upon his movement and his mannerisms and his maneuvers for it. And that preparation is an indication of expectation. Do you prepare to win or do you prepare to lose? And how do you prepare? Which leads me to this. They celebrate ahead of time. Whenever my people tell me they've got something coming up, I congratulate them ahead of time. They're like, why? Because you need to begin to transcend time. Because why should we wait to celebrate what it is that we seek to attain in reality when our waiting is an indication that it hasn't happened yet? And you can only have what you already have. So if it hasn't happened within, then it can't happen without. So your celebration of it is something that you would do upon it materializing. So if you was to celebrate ahead of time, this would be an indication to reality that it has materialized. And the final one, believe it or not, winners are independent to reality. Now, don't get it twisted. They may lose and it may suck and they may have an emotional fit, but for the most part, they're independent to reality. And because they're independent to reality, they're free from reality. If you remember what I said earlier, an internal dependency on reality will quite literally make you reality's slave. Winners are winners, no matter what the outcome is, because everything is a win. And because everything is a win and losing doesn't exist, they can never lose. And because they can never lose, their internal state remains the same. Their confidence, this degree of serene confidence and conviction in who they are, completely stays the same. Why? Because they've already won. And because they've already won, they're independent to reality. Reality can't gas them up. A medal, a trophy, that email that you got the job, that person texting you back, that sale coming through, it doesn't faze you because you've already had it. And because you've already had it, your internal state is arranged in a way that there's nothing more that it could give you. And that is the winning frequency of the 1%, ladies and gentlemen. Have fun. The winning frequency.
The what?
Oh, God, man.
The man said the weak
frequency. Freak.
I'm jacking this video for real.
I'm jacking it hard.